So let's get into where you're getting stuck. Conflict. You're in a conflict, you're with your partner, and you get triggered. Right? We all get triggered. It's very normal for people to get triggered. I don't think we ever reach a exalted place where triggering doesn't occur. I'm still yet to meet anyone like that, and I've met some pretty emotionally and spiritually evolved human beings, right? Your partner isn't actually attacking you, but it feels like it's an attack. Yeah. You can feel your body responding like it's an attack. You know, you start to feel your chest starts to clench, your jaw starts to get tight, your mind starts to get a bit foggy. Like you start to feel like, you know, you need to attack back. You need to like get the nunchucks, I was going to say. I'm thinking of like Ninja Turtles, right? And here's the thing. What then happens is you shut down, you start over-explaining, or you start under-explaining because you shut down, or you get angry, you go cold, and then you vacate, you leave the room, you leave in some way. You might not leave physically, but you might dissociate, right? And you're there and you're thinking, and you're barely listening to them, right? This is where the insight starts to fail you. The mental aspect of emotional intelligence fails you, right? But what it really is happening is your nervous system is failing you. The nervous system hasn't been trained to deal with this level of intensity and emotionality, right? Of these sorts of moments. You've done the thinking, you could probably look at the emotional wheel and you've done all that kind of stuff, but actually staying present and feeling is still difficult. So let me give you a second example about intimacy, right? You want deep connection, you value emotional closeness, and, you know, you say intimacy matters to you. Right? But when your partner wants maybe more emotional intimacy or sexual intimacy, right? Or your partner wants it slower, or she wants it different, or she gives you some instructions, right? Boom. The emotions hit you. You might start to feel numb. You might feel distracted. You might want to be avoidant. You might be irritable. You might be frustrated that she's telling what to do. You might start to tell yourself you're not good enough, and you start to shrink and hide away in the intimacy, right? And then you're even in it, and you're like, what's wrong with me? Why am I doing this? But you still feel helpless to do anything different, right? But here's the thing. It's not about your desire or your want. It's about your system's capacity, right? Your nervous system capacity to deal with those feelings and emotions and still stay grounded and present and choose the thing that you want to do. And now imagine you're starting to see a pattern here, right? You're seeing that actually, when we think it's about the thinking, it's not. In our modern world, right, we believe unconsciously most of the time, we don't even think about it, that the most superior organ in our bodies is our brain, right? And as men, we are even more guilty of this, right? Because we just walk around with like heads on a stick. We ignore our bodies other than to do exercise with it. We aren't able to tune into our breath. We aren't able to tune into our heartbeat. We aren't even able to tune into the emotions as they occur in the body and feel them, right? Often when I ask a man, how are you feeling? He just tells me about the thoughts he's having about his feelings. Yeah? And we do this all the time, the thoughts I'm having about my feelings, right? But what we don't actually do is drop down into this body, right? Which is actually giving us the signals to our feelings and actually notice. And we're all walking around doing this, right? And it means that we're really disconnected from what's really occurring, but we're also missing out on a huge reservoir of capacity for us to hold more, right? Which is our nervous system, which is part of our body. You know, the nervous system's plugged into the brain, it runs through the body and so forth. This is where we are losing out on what I would call, and was inspired by this podcast actually, was a conversation between Connor Beaton and John Wand about traits that as men we really need to bring in. One of them was emotional mastery, right? And a lot of men get stuck at this emotional intelligence stage and they never get past emotional intelligence. So they get stuck there. So they get stuck in thinking. They never reach emotional mastery of feeling and embodied experience and capacity to hold, because they read the books. We read the books by, what's his name? Daniel something, who wrote Emotional Intelligence. And we just have all the mental knowledge, right? And we see this in our workplaces. We see this in our relationships. It's all very mental. It's all very thought driven. It's all very rationalized. That's another thing we do. We have a feeling. I feel angry. I feel angry because so-and-so said this to me. And that's related to when my dad used to say this thing to me. And that's really great. And it sounds like you're really in the work and so forth, right? But actually, it's a way of us actually bypassing the felt experience of being angry, because that still feels difficult. That still feels uncomfortable. And there still probably exists some judgment around that, because as men, there's a lot of judgment around us being angry, because, you know, every single man I've met in my life has seen what happens when men get angry, right? Whether that's your father, whether he was violent, right? It doesn't have to be violent. All you have to do is know that your parents got angry and they hit you, they shouted at you, they took things away, you felt they were overblown in their response. Or we get onto the wider world and we see what angry men do, right? Whether that's bar fights, whether that's club fights, whether that's stabbings and shootings, whether that is, violence against women and girls, we know what happens, right? We have this idea of when a man gets angry, this is what happens. Like, angry man, bad things happen. And that often is the case, but it isn't the only correlation, right? So then we still reject the anger. We don't want to even feel the anger because it feels too intense, right? Or say, for instance, arousal. This is something I see a lot with men, is they, want to have sex, better sex and so forth, but they struggle to actually stay in the sensations and feelings of arousal, the capacity and feeling it. They feel arousal, they're like, I'm horny, and then they think, I need to do something about this. So they go and discharge it. Porn, masturbation, what have you, because they still have not grown in the capacity to stay with the sensation and feeling that they experience with the arousal, because it's still too much for them to be with. So emotional mastery, right? Let me say what it is. Emotional mastery is not about controlling our emotions. It's about growing in our capacity to hold them and stay with them, right? Whether those are our emotions, whether those are someone else's emotions, right? And not need to discharge, run away and do something, just to be with, to be present to, right? And stay with. And this is why, when I do work with men, especially when it's in group, we do paired experiences where both men start to feel something, right? And I don't get them to look at each other's eyes and feel anger and rage and express it and then go write it down or say what you're feeling. You teach them to stay in their body and stay present in the moment and stay with the other person while feeling. Because that's the thing that we always do. We escape, we remove ourselves, whether that is physically, whether that is mentally. And then we start to run a story about the emotion instead of feeling it, right? Because the feeling capacity we have not been taught to do. And women are much better at feeling, right? This is why as men, we think women are emotional. It's just that they learn through school, through upbringing, how to feel and then how to express how they feel, right? And how to be with what they feel. And that feels emotional to us because we're generally quite shut down, right? This is the kind of the what's it called? This is how the patriarchy teaches men to be. It teaches us to shut down our own emotions, our emotionality, our needs, because our needs and wants are connected to our emotions. Our desires are connected to our emotions. Our dreams are connected to our emotions, right? If we shut all that down, we just be good cogs in the machine, then wow, there we go, right? But we shut all that stuff down and we try and do that to other people. So the women, when we meet women and they're emotional, we're like, oh God, you're too much. Yeah? And it's true, I've been there, man. I've been that guy who said to women like, oh my God, you're so emotional. You always blow things out. You always make things into a big thing. Like, I've been that guy, It's because I just don't feel anything. Yeah? So emotional mastery is about presence, right? So when we think about it, if we think about intelligence of being the thinking, right? Mastery is around the feeling and the holding, right? Like a cup, yeah? Like you're holding the feelings and emotions, whether there's yours, whether there's someone else's. And why this becomes really important in a relationship is because in those moments where there's conflict, if you can't perfect the skill of listening to your partner, tell you about how they feel, notice your own reaction of anger and frustration and annoyance and feel it fully, and then still respond to your partner with love, care and compassion, right? all you're going to generally end up doing is either you're going to disconnect from the feeling and you're going to become cold and, logical, right? Or you can be reactive because you haven't even noticed that you're feeling these emotions inside, right? So this is why we need to have this kind of like, be able to kind of split ourselves. It's this very, when you do meditation, it's about being the witness, right? But that just keeps you in a very logical place. That keeps you quite disconnected, right? They teach you to be the witness and observe, really powerful, really useful, stops you from being reactive, but it also stops you from feeling what's actually there, which means you become quite cold and logical. And then those emotions often either start to come up in unconscious ways and leak out, or you just suppressing them completely or repressing them. So if you look at it this way, emotional intelligence is like, I understand waves. I can see the waves on the sea, on the ocean, right? Whereas emotional mastery is being able to surf the waves, yeah, skillfully. You see the comparison? There's one that's just an observer, is disconnected, whereas the mastery is that you're on it, but you're also balanced, right? Skillful, moving through them, moving around them, up and under, you know, as you do. I've actually never surfed, so I can't. I've watched a lot of surfing in my time, right? And most men are taught when it comes down to it. We're taught when emotional intensity comes, we need to either dominate it, disappear, dissociate, right? Or project it onto someone else. That's what we learn to do. So that's what we do.